All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead. We'll go ahead and jump into the roll call.
Brian Dorsey,
Present.
Lori Langley here. Richard Amici,
Here.
Diane Foster here. Lawrence O'Keefe will be absent tonight. Mike Schultz,
Here.
Mike Smith will be absent tonight. Chris West.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to look over our meeting minutes from June? Yes. Additions, any questions?
I move that they be accepted as presented.
Okay, we have a motion that they be accepted as presented. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Has been seconded. All right, all in favor of having those minutes accepted as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposing sign? All right, so those minutes will be accepted and moved into our. That sign for you, Sabrina, thank you so much. Okay. Next up, we will. Citizen comments, no one under present. This will be new for us to have the citizen comments brought forth at the beginning of the meeting. Do we have any online that was submitted?
No.
All right, wonderful. So we will continue on. Board member announcements. I'll go counterclockwise. And you think? Ever go?
Yes, I do. We were all invited to the mid-year awards. I don't know if you call it an acknowledgement or
Just mid-year recognition.
mid-year recognition, barbecue. The SPF was invited, the PAB was invited. I was able to go. Y'all missed a good time.
Yeah.
The food was fantastic. The opportunity to sit down and talk to the officers in such a relaxed environment, and listen, just listen to them banter and joke back and forth is so much fun and it's so much different. And if we get the opportunity next year, I would highly encourage everybody to try to go because it's really, it's neat. It's a neat thing. August 1st is National Night Out. There's going to be an event down in the at Cannery Square, 5 to 8.
5 to 8.
5 to 8. There will be hot dogs there, among other things. So please come on out and
Ice cream truck. Ice cream truck.
have an ice cream truck. I think there may even be some SPF, don't be crimey stuff. That might be available. It looks pretty cool, if I say so myself. So come on out and get to know your neighbors and intermingle with the police and have a good time. And hopefully it won't be too hot. And I want to say, I love the officers in this town. I was standing outside. HOA is not happy with me right now. And so I was outside trying to seed my lawn and throw peat down over my lawn and then water it all in. And I was just generally looking like warmed over because I picked the hottest flipping day that week to do it. And here comes a police officer who just stopped and rolls down the window and says, "What are you doing?" So I took the excuse and I put down everything that I was doing and I walked over and I just sit there and chit chatted with the officer, which was really nice. I mean, I appreciate that our officers will do that. So it just, again, we talked about this at the barbecue, but just kudos to this department. It's just so much different than everywhere else I've ever lived. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
Lori, how did you find out about the barbecue? I don't recall receiving an email or anything.
I did get an email. In fact, I got 2 emails. I got one through the Sherwood Police Foundation too, because it had come to us, but then I got a reminder from the department. So my apologies.
You sent them out.
I got it and RSVP'd and then work got in the way and I didn't show up.
We ate your ribs for you.
I would,
There was another correspondence, remember, we talked about a meeting
Yeah.
recently. So maybe we just need to double check that your email is on the distribution.
Yeah.
There was another notice that. we
Yeah,
had
there was
last
something
time.
else that I wasn't
Mhm.
in the loop on either.
yeah, June 27th, 8:51 PM. So yeah, police advisory board. So we've got to make sure.
Hmm.
Do you have multiple emails or do you have a
Right.
spam folder?
I have the one.
Okay.
I wonder if the police advisory board self-populates and it's an old.
Oh,
List.
List.
Yeah, it just maybe doesn't.
All right.
Oh,
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Chris.
Well, I was bummed that I missed yesterday and now I'm even more bummed. Two things. I was very pleased with the PD's presence at Cruisin'. That was awesome. And then last weekend, I was disappointed that there wasn't a booth for the PD.
Yeah.
Not an area.
Where?
Over,
It's like right as you, yeah, as you walked in the side entrance more from the railroad track side into Robin Hood.
503.
yeah, we're always there. So we move between Cruisin' and Robin Hood. So Cruisin', we're always in front of
Oh,
it.
you know what? I bet we were there because we went early. Because you may not have been there when we were there. And then we stood waiting for the parade to start forever. And the 4-year-olds, when we were done with the parade and she had wrestled for candy. All she wanted to do was a couple more things and eat. So, but I saw one of the new, what you just brought on new reserves.
Yeah,
And he was riding in the 4-wheeler up and down before the parade. I figured that out.
yeah, Jessica.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I've been going to Robin Hood and watching the parade forever. This was one of the best and one of the longest I can remember.
It's
So
like an hour and a
so
half.
packed in town. But,
To get it all the way through. Yeah.
that was, like I said, it was nice to see the PD out and about and those big community events and I got to see and stood by those new, traffic barriers that Captain Dano helped get. Those were pretty impressive when that's where we watched the parade from that corner right behind the stage.
Yeah, those are nice added feature. I don't know if you know, do you know what he's talking about? Yeah, so the barriers, we ended up borrowing a set from Hillsborough as well. So we had the 16 out, which was great. Probably need 24, but baby steps.
Not too much to report. I did want to just formally apologize for missing last meeting and not calling anybody about it. I feel terrible for it and I will try not to let that happen again. That work got in the way and that's really all I have, so.
Just to piggyback off of the Robin Hood Festival, I did see the whole group of police there. I thought that was cool. Everybody was interacting, talking with community members. And it looked like at that time I came through in the evening time. Were there also reserves from other departments that were down there? That's what I thought, because it looked like there were like 4 or so.
Beaverton?
Yes, and they had on like light blue shirts. And I thought that was super cool because at that time in the evening, you also get like teenagers down there. So I thought that's a cool thing that they were there at that time because, you know, then teenagers see it, ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was a cool timing for them to be there sort of when that crowd came through.
We didn't think about that, but now you bring it up.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And then just my second thing is, of course, I watched the live PD or whatever your name is videos.
Grammy Chronicles.
And I think those are fun.
Those are awesome.
And my kids have watched them too.
And we've been asked a lot about an update on the cat. I think we're gonna do something with it.
So now you're gonna have like follow-up questions from your videos that you post.
Well, lots of people have been wanting to know what happened with the cat lady, so, the gal that got
Scratched.
scratched up, so we're gonna probably try and do something.
You're lovely.
All right, I don't have anything big to say. I just, want to say I always appreciate when I see the officers out and about. I usually don't get many in my neighborhood, but 4th of July evening, I definitely had an officer drive on my street. Comment on the display that was happening down the road at the end of the cul-de-sac, and, just a quick little, thanks for being out, chat, and, he was on his way and things calmed down for about 10 minutes. And we had a good night. So, again, it's always great seeing them out and about, especially when we have a lively evening.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I only have a few things. Yeah, the Robin Hood Festival, that was awesome. And to your point, the reservists, another piece that they did that I forgot about is I was there to help volunteer to clean up toward the end on Saturday. And there's so many cars and vans that have to come through and pull in to load up their tents and what have you. And that's what part of their job was too, is to make sure people aren't just continually walking out in the middle in front of these cars and vans, or as they're backing up even, to make sure the streets are clear. So that was great to see. I mean, all hands on deck to help with that effort. It's a gargantuan effort when we get that many vendors out there. Something else that I saw, it was a comment on the posting on Facebook regarding the car that was tagged. And a lot of interesting comments on that. And I know what they're speaking of when there's abandoned cars and they're sitting there, and some people are just, okay, whatever it takes to get that car gone. Good, man, let's get that, you know. But one of the comments was from a lady who can't see, you know, she's visually impaired. So to add a description instead of only a picture, she was saying, can somebody describe, you know, and I've seen her mention that a few times where she's not able to, you know, she can do the text to speech. But if there's not a description of the person or the vehicle, you know, she feels, and others I'm sure feel like, man, I wish I could get a true sense of what that is, you know, a description of it. But now think about it, you can't, description, maybe you can't see it. You would know you saw it or not. But anyway,
So
yes,
somebody, I think, explained it to her, didn't they?
I think somebody further down,
Yeah.
yeah, just on the lookout for a certain type of car, I guess color or whatever. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, yeah, because we've changed some of our posts for her,
Oh, great,
because when things are embedded,
yeah.
then her
App or whatever.
yeah, whatever she uses can't capture, can't read it to her.
Oh, it doesn't really, okay.
So sometimes, yeah, we've had to fix some things, so.
Yeah, I was just thinking of other people in that same, you know, situation. That was about it. Yeah, the Sherwood Crime Chronicles, you know, it just goes to show that our officers just do their job with the utmost professionalism and things never get too crazy. I mean, we were able to nab some pretty bad folks that have warrants out in other counties and what have you. And the fact that we have that record of arresting people with no incidents is pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
So,
I also like, sorry to add on to that, the first episode when they pulled somebody over who was a Spanish speaker, and then it showed the call to the Spanish speaker to show up to, I liked that, to show the community that does happen and that's here. And so I thought that was a neat insight into that.
Yeah, and I think we went back, when we first watched it, we didn't have the translation. What's the stuff that goes?
Closed caption.
Thank you.
Oh, I
So that was brought to our attention that we needed to add that. So, you know, it's obviously, people want to know what we're saying and what they're saying. Yeah, especially if you don't understand the language.
especially the microphones will pick up the officer, and sometimes it doesn't pick up the occupant of the car as well as it could.
Back to the tag car. One of the TV stations, I want to say Coin, posted that. It was pretty much verbatim of what the Facebook post, but they did an online story of that that I saw this afternoon after I'd seen the post.
With the victim?
With, no, the car.
Just the car, okay.
Yeah, it was basically the post, just them pushing the post out on their online service, which I thought that's great, you know?
Yeah.
And I hadn't even seen the swastika on the car. I just saw the headlights, so I think, oh, they the headlights, but then after reading the comments, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what they were.
Yeah.
That was all I had. And so now let's get down to business. We'll go ahead and get started here, Ty. On business that we have with the department.
Like. You want me to, like, updates?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yes, I have some. So as you know, I talk about this repeatedly, hiring. We have two that we should be bringing on board here in the next month. One's a lateral and one's an internal or reserve. So that'll be two of our four. And then we're doing we're doing interviews on 3 laterals in the next week to see if we can pick up 2 more. So we need a total of 4. And I think I've said this, we got the 3 people that are retiring, but with the levy passing and the additional SRO, we're gonna be able to fill that second SRO spot. So all things align for us. We should have that second SRO and probably no later than October 1. So we'll be a little behind on the school year, but we'll have that person in place at the middle school. So the idea will be 1 in the high school, 1 in the middle school, and then they'll split the elementaries, but that's moving forward. Had a minor setback with our recruit down at the academy. He got injured. Sustained pretty significant shoulder bicep injury, so we could lose him for another potentially 6 to 10 months, but we'll see how that shakes out. Just see how he heals up and whether or not there's gonna be, you know, surgery needed or some of those things, but
Can you go over the retirements again so I can make sure I've got it in my head?
yeah, Deb, Carlson,
Okay,
and Sean Perry.
oh, that was the one I wasn't remembering. Okay.
And then we have a job offer out to a gal who's from Yamhill County. She's gonna fill our evidence position.
Great.
She's coming out of the DA's office. And hopefully she'll be here within the next month. So then we'll have that full-time evidence, and then Bill, who's been splitting that, will be out on the road as a full-time community services officer. And he'll be able to augment patrol for crashes, taking cold thefts, just, you know, kind of back end help in a lot of ways. And so that's pretty exciting on that end.
Yeah. So DA's office, was she a paralegal or was she?
Somewhere in that arena. I'm not totally sure. She comes with a wealth of knowledge, just kind of on the technical side of things with Axon and evidence and some of the reports, RMSs and things like that. So that'll be nice. And then we'll get her up to speed on, you know, evidence collection, crime scene stuff and how it all works back here. But I think she'll be a great member to the team. So it'll be fun. And I've locked my shoes.
Oh,
My.
on the back.
I hope I don't have to get up and run.
Keep talking. Any updates on the drone, thermal? So, and I know they're talking about, DJI, some of the things they're looking at as far as limiting or restricting or.
So Nathan, one of our sergeants has been researching a lot of that. So I think we're down to 2. And I can't tell you the model number because I can't remember. But I know DJI.
Yep.
I think one of their most recent ones, it's their weather group one. for the most part, which we need here.
Yeah.
We don't get this kind of weather all year round, you know, we need them to be able to fly and rain and wind. So if we can, we're gonna try and get two. We're gonna get a really kind of robust one that can go out in all the inclement weather, has the thermal IR. And then we'll have a smaller one that we can utilize to come into buildings, throw into a building and do that. So hopefully here in the next couple months. And on top of that, we have to have everybody get their licenses.
Yes.
When I say everybody, not everybody, we're gonna, you know, probably half a dozen. Just so that at any one time, somebody's probably working or can grab them and go.
So this last weekend, I think it was with the Portland PD, they had a accident involving a motorcycle. And they were investigating it. It took them a while to get there because of the street blockage and stuff. And then another motorcycle went through and they started pursuing after him. But then they caught him in Gresham and relied on drones and other stuff.
I think they have their airplane up,
Oh, they had to, okay, because I was.
because they usually monitor the street racing stuff with the airplane.
Okay, because I was blown away that a drone could keep track, that somebody operating a drone could keep track of somebody going all the way to Gresham, so.
That would have been impressive.
Yeah, that's why, that makes sense now, that the plane was up
Yeah.
because of the street stuff.
I can tell you, we have used them quite a bit recently. I hear them asking for drones a lot. It's just a great tool. So pretty excited to get them in here.
It's tuning up.
To start, yeah, I mean, they're spendy
Mhm.
and just, you know, just getting them up there and seeing how they go. And so Tiger, Tualatin, Beaverton County all have drones. I think Hillsborough does too, but so it's kind of nice. We all rely, it's the canine philosophy, you know, if we need a canine, we need a drone, you know, and somebody will come down and help us. And we've been very fortunate that they all respond pretty quickly. I think, I can't remember if I talked about this last time, but the incident over here on 12th when we were running around searching for the guy for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Beaverton came down with drones. I think Tiger came down with drones.
Yeah,
And we eventually got him, but
back, yeah.
yeah, and then we've used them on some other things, so.
And the timing though could be better because you're getting the most cutting edge drone with the VETS camera and the.
Yeah, at least this week. It's kind of like this dumb thing, you know?
But I mean, I think the only thing you can do is make the battery better and make it lighter really at this point. 'Cause the cameras.
I was gonna ask, how long does the battery last?
So I think the new battery is almost an hour.
Yeah.
If I remember, 50 minutes, 50 plus minutes. In perfect conditions, obviously, but
Can you hotspot? Where that means when it lands, you just pull the battery out, put another one in and it goes right back up. You don't have to.
no, but we're probably can't disclose our top secret idea of mid-air battery exchange.
I see batteries.
Put it on double.
It's just a little light tap.
Fall Valley comes in with a ladder truck.
Well, thank you so much for that. We're going to now jump into our traffic safety committee update. All right, he is ready.
So I was able to attend my first traffic safety committee meeting last month, and it was very interesting. It was a short meeting. There wasn't anything really new. There was one brand new citizen concern that was submitted, and they were concerned about a road that was being used by pedestrians and electric bikes to access the park, and they were worried about cars maybe having accidents with trees. And the interesting thing that came out of that, first off, the city already had a plan in place for signage and controls for that road, but I learned that electric bikes are supposed to operate on roads, not sidewalks. So that's something I wasn't aware of. I do see a lot of bikes, and since that meeting, I've probably seen 3 bikes zipping down a sidewalk. So that was definitely interesting to kind of know exactly what the law is there. But they have, like I said, a plan in place for that already. Everything else is just kind of pending. Waiting for state approvals or for the city to actually implement some of the changes, so nothing new. The pedestrian bridge to the high school, everything's on track. They're going to start construction hopefully by Thanksgiving. Everything is just off and running. And if everything stays on track, then that means that when the side where it lands on Elwert is gonna have some closures to that street for a bit, and that'll happen during summer when school's in session. So they're gonna try and stay on track to make sure nothing impacts the traffic there for the schools. That was it. That was the big talking point.
We have a new city engineer.
No.
Okay.
No, so, two things real quick, if can I come back? So, talking about the Fed Bridge, we've been spending a lot of time with, video surveillance and how that should look and, you know, because this is a monster of a bridge and just working through all the logistics of that and for us to be able to monitor it. So that'll be interesting when that comes into play, but
Is it gonna be encased so that people can't throw stuff from it?
I don't think they've landed on the cameras yet. We've talked a lot about
But I
just
mean-
locations.
But I mean, so that we don't get rocks thrown off of it.
No,
Encase that way.
No, I don't think it's gonna be that high. It's not gonna be that, I mean. It's not gonna be an enclosed one at all. It's gonna be open. I think Portland has some that go up pretty high. But I don't think there's any even down there that are enclosed or.
There's a few, but not, most of them are not.
Given what we just arrested for
Yeah, out in Gresham.
Oh, for throwing rocks off of it.
cinder blocks.
Oh. I mean, it's gonna be a fantastic thing for the city, but it's gonna come with some challenges, you know, some growing pains with people getting silly.
We are making it tall enough that we're not gonna have to worry about tractor trailers taking it out or anything.
No,
stupid like
no,
that,
this,
right?
yeah, this thing's, it's big. It's really big.
So how, have you seen the design for it?
It's on the city website.
Yeah.
And they had different like surveys for people to vote on design and color. The latest one was color, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be white.
The ramp going up to it, you could vote on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be an awesome bridge, just. Gonna be monsters. I think. 2025.
So this will be.
I think it's hopefully somewhere in there, in the early 2025. I mean, everybody wants it done yesterday, but.
And speaking of cameras, I know there's cameras underneath the bridge at Stella Olson where the creek is. And we've all seen footage of crimes caught in the act. The same plan is in place to have cameras on the walkway and below, under the ramps and so on.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time just looking for nooks and crannies of, you know, where are they gonna tag, where are they gonna hide, where are they gonna sleep, where are they gonna do dumb things. And so we just want to really try to make it as robust as possible. And if nothing else, depending on the cost, I mean, we'll have the ability to grow with it and add on if we need to, but you know, I don't know if you know the high school site has a really long ramp that goes down to it. You know, and it's got some edges where kids, I mean, it's gonna be a skateboarding issue because they're gonna get some momentum going down that sucker. And so we'll see how that shakes out, but I recommended speed bumps. You gotta slow them down because you gotta remember, you have the skate park on the Y side.
Yeah,
So you know they're gonna be coming out of the park and going up and
heading home.
ripping down the ramps, so. There'll all be things that we'll deal with.
Speaking, since you mentioned people sleeping under and stuff, I've been noticing, and maybe it's just this summer, when I'm heading to work at 6-ish. There's an elderly homeless woman that I'm seeing regularly now.
She have a cart.
I don't see her with the cart, but she's got long gray hair, very thin. And then the last 2 mornings I've seen a guy in Old Town, with a backpack and definitely been sleeping somewhere. But you know, during the winter, you just don't see them, but I've been seeing her off and on for a year or so, but, and she'll come through and get something at, Sesame every once in a while at 6 a.m.
I'm 99%
Me too, yeah.
sure of who it is. And they live here, they live in the city. She just likes to walk.
Okay.
Longtime resident.
Yeah. I mean, there's been I don't even know if you want to call it a slight uptick, but I mean, summer, obviously, you see a little bit more people out and about, you know, they're willing to sleep in open spaces more so than they are in the winter, so. But nothing of significance that we've seen or had to deal with.
Had that already been enacted in terms of the place, time and
Manner.
manner?
Yep. Yeah, so as of July 1, we have that in play. I mean, we have areas within the city that can be utilized if in fact we need to place them somewhere. We this council's kind of prioritize where they think number one is right now, but they've left it open to make adjustments if needed. But it's 9 to 7. And then obviously just no public places, 500 feet here, parks, city property. So, I mean, it's pretty restrictive but there's still the ability for people to find a place for the evening if they need to.
Thank you, Richard, for that. Sorry, we got sort of off the path there, but counselor news. So Kim is not with us this evening. Is there anything you know of in the last meeting? If not, that's all right.
No.
We've had the staff reports. Thank you for that. Got to see the reservists also. The reservist that's going to be coming on. You have a name? Are you able to give the name of the reservist that we're in the process of hiring?
Yeah. It's her husband. Chris, it's gonna be Chris Sharp. He's been a reserve here now for a year at least. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit longer than a year. I think.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yep. So that's kind of the idea of the reserve program is you invest your time and effort in here to be, come here and do that. And if you want to do it full time, then obviously it works out great for us because we already know you.
That's what Casey did. If I remember right.
Matheson, all of
Yeah, Matt.
all the
Yeah.
greats. Matheson. Yeah, wonderful. All right, well, now we get to jump into the policy updates.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I'm ready.
Oh, great. So if you remember last time, we are just trying to find kind of more efficient and effective way to get through these things and what do you really need to see, what you don't need to see. And so I went back and I still gave you a bunch just so that you could see what I get. And then I'll start weeding that out. And what I mean by that is these are kind of broken down by minor and critical and major. And so sometimes you'll see that and you'll think, uh-oh, that had a major. If it said major, it must mean it had a major update. That's not true. It's just the way that these chapters and these policies are broken down within our policy. So like traffic operations is critical. I mean, that's a high risk, high liability area for us. So it's always going to be critical. And you could go through there and it's simply, commas and punctuation changes. And so,
Or statute changes.
citation changes. And so it really didn't mean that there was a critical change to it. It's just, that's how that particular chapter is always identified. I tell you that because I may bring something or not bring something to you because although it's in a critical chapter, it was simply citation changes or punctuation and there's just no reason to do it. However, this time I sent it to you just so you could kind of see because I think it all set up there at the corners of what, what they were, but, you look in here and it's a spacing error. So I will minimize those things. And if I remember correctly, we want to always make sure that, I'm bringing forward any use of force, any driving, obviously anything that is high liability, high risk for us needs to come to you guys, which I 100% agree with. And then, if I change our tie from black to blue, I don't care because they're probably too worked up about that. Okay. All right.
So for me, and I'm a little bit old school, so I printed it out, but I really like the red line style because I could look quickly going through pages and see it's like going through a new bill in the legislature, what's changed, what's been deleted. And I could look quickly if I needed to spend time on something, or if it was just changing the statute or changing there was some gender neutralizing stuff through here, and stuff like that. So, well, it was a lot of pages. It was easy for me to identify what I needed to spend time with. And I appreciate that than the summary that we had, because there's a lot in here, there's a lot here, but it was a lot easier for me to absorb.
Yeah, everybody on the same page with that, a little easier. I mean, I know this, we're gonna be better on top of the policy changes. So it won't be hopefully so heavy moving forward, but yeah, if you get this and you can see the red line changes, I agree, it's probably a lot easier than the summaries. If everybody's good with that, I'll continue to do that. I'll get it out to you beforehand and then, obviously you can come with questions if you have. And then the other thing, I guess, is what is the preference on going through these? Do you want to hit the big hitters or do you want to hit so for me, the big hitters on this is our pursuit policy. And then there's some other significant changes in here, but those are more legislatively driven.
I had some with the control devices and the crowd control that I wanted to touch on. Because I think if I remember back from when we went through this stuff with Jeff, a lot of the stuff in here, you don't even have these tools. And if the tools were used here, it's because Washington County came in, right?
Yeah, so this 303.7, crowd control guidelines, which was legislatively mandated on what we can use, tear gas, deploying, warnings, all those kind of things. You're right, Chris, in the fact that we don't have a team. So if we were ever involved in a critical incident like that, Washington County's mobile field force would come out and then they would take control of it. It's same if it was major crimes team or TNT. And so they really take command of that scene situation. And they actually have to abide by this as well, because this is not unique to Sherwood. This is what everybody actually, Mike can speak to that, being down in Portland and helping out down there, just all the restrictions that were put in place with this. And so that's what really drove.
Probably why a lot of this is revised.
Oh,
There were some differences between like Portland's and then Multnomah County, who had the building right downtown. I mean, there was differences in their crowd control techniques, even
And
though
then you had the feds come in to protect.
and then the feds came in, and then the state police would come too, because the governor wanted to have the state police there, and we had a lot of different agencies.
So that was one of my questions. Other agencies follow the same or just slightly tweak policies. Like, for example, I was reading the pursuit section, it was talking about you wouldn't have more than 3 vehicles. And then that got me thinking, okay, let's say 12s is pursuing someone and it comes here and all of a sudden our officers meet up, they back off because collectively there's 3 or they have their own set of rules and.
No, within Washington County, we actually have an agreement, a pursuit agreement. So it is 3. So if they came in here, we either let them pass through or we take over.
Okay.
Or if they needed a 3rd, we would jump in there, but it's not going to be this big, long train. So
But there was the one incident that I had to get off the road for when a Clackamas sheriff was pursuing a stolen car and came in down the hill in Sunset and turned onto Main, and that's where I was coming down Main the other way. And Sherwood didn't aid in the pursuit, and that's when the condos at the corner of Railroad and whatever, when that was one of the cars he hit, and then the guy got over by the Oregon Street, little small roundabout is where he died.
yeah. So the way the policy works is if an outside agency comes in to the city, we have control of it. We can terminate the pursuit. Sometimes the issue that arises is when another like OSP or Clackamas or Yamahill County or Newburgh are coming in and we're not all on the same radio channels. Sometimes we don't even know that. I mean, hopefully we get advance notice, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Next thing you know, they're in the city and where they've ripped through it. And we've had times where they've just gone right through our city.
So we pulled over for the 2 SPD going through Old Town and heading towards Sunset. And then next thing we know, this car's flying by and Clackamas is behind. And then there was the wrecks and we found out the rest of the story.
Yeah.
How would they normally notify you from outside of this Washington County?
So most of the agencies now, we can flip to the other channels. But I'm gonna tell you, if you're driving, high rate of speed and, your finger dexterity and trying to get over there is sometimes challenging. So they can typically ask dispatch, they'll get on the radio and say, hey, can you let Washington County or Sherwood know that we're coming? And trying to relay that. And then figuring out where they're at and what's really going on. This can be confusing, but I think we're getting better with it. Obviously pursuits are such a hot topic. And just such high liability for agencies that, we really tighten things down with how that works and when we will pursue and when we won't, just because we don't want to crash and hurt somebody unnecessarily.
I went back and I reread the pursuit section because there was a motorcycle being pursued a couple days ago. And someone posted on one of the Facebook pages saying they were flying by and that they just turned their lights off and let the motorcycle go. Why would they do that? And a lot of the people supposing in the comments reasons why. I went back and checked and went, too much of a risk. The person's been identified. I just went through, I'm like, that's a valid reason. That's a valid reason. So it was good to see it there in writing. When it might have happened.
Yeah, I mean, the risk, again, I mean, really what drives pursuits is the risk greater than the reward? Or is the reward greater than the risk, I guess I should say. There's very few circumstances where you're willing to just chase them through, all circumstances. Motorcycles are extremely dangerous to chase. I mean, it's rarely, rare exceptions that you will. I mean, you'll attempt to pull them over, which I'm sure that's what was happening. And he elected, a lot of times, the motorcycles will act like they're going to slow down and then they're gone. And, they lane split and they're gone. And so you're never going to catch them. But, or with a vehicle, to your point, if we know who it is, if we know that it's Jimmy, down the road that stole the car, that steals the cars all the time, well, we'll catch him later kind of deal. There's no reason to risk him running down the road and crashing and killing somebody. But as you know, and here's our challenge is people are much more reckless now, I think, in the last few years than they've ever been. They don't care. They run from us. They drive the wrong way on 99. They crash into patrol cars. They're hitting patrol cars more now than I've ever, I think, can remember. So, you know, that risk is rising as to we need to stop these people. And it's always a fine balance for the officer and the supervisor on the road, you know, trying to go through all those points, you know, and making sure that they're making the right decision. But I think we have a pretty good policy that gives you room to make and be discretionary on that, but also responsible for, you know, why are you really needing to chase somebody? Yeah, and that policy got changed. As you, if you saw, I mean, it's kind of goofy. They cut a lot and then they moved it all over. And it's like, I'm not sure why they did all that.
So this wasn't a result of a statute as much as just cleaning it up. Is that
On the pursuit?
on the pursuit?
Yeah, and here's the. One is.
7.
The only thing that, I am having some hesitation on is, this one's so long. It's involving, shooting from a vehicle, and how come I didn't mark that? I don't know. But we've always had that, you know, you're not supposed to shoot from your pursuing vehicle. But then there's the caveat, obviously, if you have the right to engage in use of deadly force. That's the first time that it's changed the language in there a bit, so.
But this wasn't, from what I could tell, it wasn't done because Salem did something.
No, this is Lexipol. This is just Lexipol cleaning.
That's what that was my gut.
And like I said, you got a full page of red, and they just pasted it 2 pages
And moved it
over.
over. Yeah, that's what I saw.
And then obviously, so the one thing that doesn't change in here is 3076. And within that pursuit policy, right, page 12, Sabrina, is the interjurisdictional considerations. So we still operate under that in the, within the Washington County deal.
So remind me, there was a pursuit and engagement this last year that was up over Roy Rogers on the north side, or maybe it was the old grandma's nursery on the shoals. It was out of town and we put somebody in a ditch or something like that, or had to stop them with one of our cars or with somebody else's, some other agency's car.
Oh, when we pitted them?
Yeah,
That was up here on, Roy Rogers, yeah.
yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can still pit. We don't have push bars on our cars, but we still train to do the pit maneuver. Obviously spike strips, they're trained in. Is there, why I'm moving to the next one, any other things that came up that you saw that you wanted clarification on or had questions on?
I have a general observation I made throughout a lot of these. There's a phrase, excited delirium, that has been included over and over and over. Is there a reason that's no longer being used?
Yes,
I saw that too.
First time it's like, okay, no, then it just kept happening.
let me find that for you. Because I do remember reading why they removed that and I have to.
First time was proved in one of the. It was on.
300.6, page 7.
Yep, that's where I saw it the first.
Just, because we. I'm looking for why they took it out. They give you the little synopsis. That's the only downside to this. They don't tell you why they took it out. They just redline it. And I can go back and find that. Well, I'm looking for that. What did you have, Brian?
I had a question on, it was 303.7, where it speaks to handheld chemical incapacitants and kinetic impact projectiles shall not be used for crowd control. And then further down on the next page, it says, after deploying chemical incapacitants, kinetic impact projectiles or sound devices in a crowd control operation, and when it's possible to do so safely, officers shall. So it said that it shouldn't happen, but then it says after you deploy it, see what you should do. So I didn't know if that was just a mistake in terms of them not.
No, there's criteria that has to be in place for that to happen, for you to deploy them. You have to
Probably been declared a riot. That they can-
yeah.
But they can't just use it at, like, when they first get there, they have to go through a whole bunch of things before they can use those tools. So they have to give, I mean, normally, and I can't remember what it said in there, but it's like 2 admonishments, like over a loudspeaker saying, we're declaring this a riot, you need to leave, or we're gonna use these tools against, you could use these tools against you, and you have to give them plenty of warning and time to clear out and stop what they're doing. And if all else fails, then they declare a riot, then there's tons of steps that have to happen before that happens. So, but you can't just at will be firing those, pepper balls and, rubber RBDDs and all those things out into a crowd.
And
Yeah, I mean, because I saw the except incident events that constitute right, that was all stricken out on page, this is on 303.7. Yeah, it was all stricken out, it was in red, and so it says handheld. Right there, see handheld chemical incapacitants shall not be used for crowd control. That whole except in circumstances that constitute right, that was all stricken out. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying they struck that language out. And they struck out the whole part about terminating a riot isn't, they struck all that out. Pull down for more, and then it says, after deploying the chemical incapacitants, kinetic impact, which you aren't supposed to do
No,
in a
because
crowd control operation.
because up above, it said that he could do it under certain circumstances when it
I
was.
see what Brian's
avoid-
saying though, that it does look like it was taken out.
Yeah, it was taken out.
Look above, where is it here? Okay, so. The shift supervisor can allow it to prevent death or serious bodily injury.
Tear gas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so-
prior to deploying tear gas for crowd control.
Yeah, tear gas was okay.
Yeah.
But the chemical incapacitants and kinetic impact projectiles were not.
Well, that's-
So I think
isn't the
what the-
chemical
But
incapacity.
the difference is they took crowd control out because I think it was too encompassing. I mean, you could kind of say I'm controlling the crowd for, a number of reasons. And so this is specific as to prevent death or serious bodily injury or to bring an objectively dangerous and unlawful situation under control. That is very defined as into what their actions are versus crowd control. And then it goes on to the next page that says prior to deployment, as Mike was saying, you got to give the admonishments twice if reasonable and available, and then.
I see what Brian's saying,
Yeah,
but the way, I mean, what I'm reading up there, the part that's in red that they took out, that's the way we used to do it. Cause it says specifically that except in circumstances that constitute a riot and the officer using the chemical capacitant reasonably believe that the use is necessary. So that was what we used to go under.
That's what you used to, yeah, now
So
it's
I-
changed.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think that's a pretty valid point.
About after you use what you're not supposed to use.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Why would you say after you use what you're not supposed to use?
And the whole thing was a moving target during the entire, because they were trying to reform a lot of the stuff while we were actively using it every night. I mean, one night we could use it and then the next night they were like, oh, okay, you can't use
Like the biggest one was the pepper balls, because they were in it was a paintball gun that had these little pepper balls in it. And we used to use it for like area denial, they would call it, where we didn't want them to come any closer to us. They're throwing rocks and everything else, and it wasn't necessarily a riot, but it was dangerous for us. So we would kind of just put down on the ground in front of them. We weren't shooting people with it, but we were putting it down on the ground in front of them. And then the pepper is like a dust instead of a gas.
Oh, yeah.
And they would, cough, and then they would back up and they would stop throwing rocks at us. And they said, we can't use those for those anymore. And so, and we just started getting destroyed then.
Well, it just looks like there's just an error in terms of, going through and after striking something out, going through and saying, okay, this is no longer applies. We have to strike this out too. So it's stricken out that language.
Yeah, I'll have Ryan take a look at it. I understand what they're saying. Because they had to get away and be very specific, because if you look at the bottom of ORS 181A 708. They had, you have to identify that. Deployment is to prevent death or serious bodily injury. Or to bring the objectively dangerous and unlawful situation under control. I think they're trying to get away from the term crowd control.
Yeah.
I'll check, I'll run it by Ryan.
I did find a spot in 431 where they struck excited, delirium, or other agitated chaotic behavior, and they replaced it with extreme agitation or is engaged in violent, irrational behavior accompanied by profuse sweating, extraordinary strength beyond their physical characteristics, and imperviousness to pain. It's on page 2 of bottom of 1 and top of page 2, 431.
From there.
I'm trying to.
Maybe they decided that that's not a term that even people mostly know
Yeah,
what it means. so
I mean,
they
I'm
want it to
not
be more
positive,
specific.
but my take on it is that, like, I know in the medical field, excited delirium used to be kind of thrown around all the time for somebody that was just kind of acting crazy. And then they changed it a little bit to where it's an actual medical term for somebody that exhibits all those signs that you just read off. And so they may be trying to change that a little bit so that an officer doesn't have to try to diagnose somebody of actually having excited delirium, which is a medical term now.
Versus
Versus just saying they're sweaty and they're acting crazy.
Found it. I knew I'd read it. And that's almost right on. As a part of ongoing quality maintenance of manual content, Lexipol has reviewed the appropriateness of the term quote excited delirium in our content. After reviewing documents published by the medical community and other leaders in law enforcement industry, we have decided to remove the term from our policies, changes to this policies. So I guess
That way they don't have to diagnose somebody medically.
Right.
They can just say they're acting crazy, they're exhibiting these signs and.
super strength.
and
Defined medical term now.
yeah, and they said, they wanted to include additional descriptive information to better describe subject behavior and symptoms. So thank you for clarifying that. I knew I'd run it or read it somewhere.
I have some questions under 413, which is immigration. And I'm pretty sure this is all either federal changes or something. Which he said for what, 13?
Was this about the visas? Or the-
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the striking of collecting documentation, I just was curious why that is, what's the reasoning behind that?
Why it was removed?
Yeah, because you can't do it anymore?
Yeah, pretty much. We don't ask for it. We can't ask for it. So it's, we can't document it. It kind of falls along same lines of gangs. We can't ask about gang affiliation.
Why?
I can't remember exactly. So
Probably got sued by the ACLU or something.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's different, but it's along the same context. There's just things that we're not allowed to ask. We're not allowed, and so it just takes it out of there, whether you're a citizen or not, it doesn't matter. This, what we do doesn't apply, so.
All right.
Yeah, if they don't have their license on them or whatever, general questions. covered.
Yeah, I mean, we can take the steps to identify you, but we can't be out here asking, discriminatory questions. Are you a citizen or where are you from kind of thing? So.
So you can't say you from around these parts.
You might be.
You could, but somebody probably has some questions for you afterwards.
That might be your lesson.
And then, obviously, the tow policy was a big one. If you read that, there's a lot of changes to that, which, really wasn't a lot of changes, a lot of redlining.
Yeah, it's moving stuff, wasn't it, for the most part?
Yeah, so, just how we tow, I mean, there and again, we're a part of the Washington County tow contract policy, so we follow Washington County's guidelines on this. This had a lot to do with, searching again, incident to arrest and what we do, and really none of this changed. Again, it's one of those things, they redlined it, but then they just moved it.
Yeah. So,
Question on that.
Yeah.
This relates to one of the comments, one or two of the comments about the car that was vandalized. When it's talking here about you have the ability to take custody of an abandoned, parked or left standing unattended vehicle. How do you guys identify, I know in like New York, they have the boots and they put the marks on tires and all that stuff. How do you guys identify a car that was parked, let's say over by truck parked there off of Sunset, the one where they just will sit there for a while? How do you identify it's been abandoned or just?
So we mark the tires to start.
Okay.
So you take chalk, you hit the tire and then on the road so that, they make sure they line up and you can say after 72 hours, it hasn't moved. And then we have to articulate why we believe it's abandoned. Expired tags, flat tire, engines out, the obvious things. And then that'll give us the authority to tow it. For us here in Sherwood, what gets tricky is, it looks like it's a running car. There's no issues with it, but it's sat in front of, somebody's house for 5 days and they don't like it. It gets a little trickier. So then we be creative. We run the plates and figure out who owns it. We give them kind of an update on our policy or in our code for parking in, neighborhoods, because it's, I want to say it's 5 days.
Right.
You're not supposed to let, okay, well, kind of jams a family up. If they park their car in front of their house for a week's vacation, so
I was
there's,
wondering if they were out of town or something.
Yeah, I
It's
mean-
like in front of their house.
so it's, we work pretty hard to make sure that a car like that, we wouldn't tow. We would go through the efforts of locating, figuring out what's going on with it typically. Be pretty rare exceptions.
So normally that's from someone calling in a car being parked, right? You're not going around looking, okay. this car
No,
in front of somebody's house, okay, it's been here for a few.
abandoned vehicles are complaint driven.
Yeah.
99% of the time, unless we roll up on something, we're like, that doesn't look right. And we do get a lot of complaints of, people just not liking cars parked in their neighborhoods or in front of their houses.
so, and for going on over 3 days, there was a really nice car with Washington plates that semi looked like somebody was living out of it that was parked in front of our place. And, I've been on that street for 23 years. And know who's generally parking on the street. And Tina was thinking about, should I call the non-emergency and just find out if it's stolen? And left. And she was out watering and talking to one of the neighbors to see if they knew. And sure enough, it was 4 houses down, but their daughter's sorority friend was visiting and they'd gone to the coast. And the car was sitting there, so we didn't have to call it.
But that's good. Yeah, usually that's what the stories are, but we can all probably articulate a vehicle that we knew for sure was abandoned and probably shouldn't be sitting there. So we got some checks and balances to that.
For citizens that think a car may be stolen and sit down in front of their house, is there a website they could go to or anything that
They have to call us.
they have to call?
Yeah, they would need to call us and we'd have to come check the car. I mean, it's pretty simple for us to run by and run the plate and determine whether it's stolen or not. To your point, a lot of us have lived here a long time. I know exactly if there's a car in my neighborhood that shouldn't be there. I'm like, So, yeah, I think it's great that we just, you're looking out for one another and making those phone calls. And again, people always hesitate to call us. It's not a big deal. That's what we're here for. Give us a call, swing by there, check it out. And it could be just that, the neighbor's friend was in for the weekend and they all went to the coast and left the car there. Puts people's minds at ease sometimes. One I want to bring up is 600. Yeah, investigation and prosecution interviews of child witnesses. So this is a legislative mandate last year that we had to have it all in place. And I had to send this down to Salem so that they knew that we were in line with what they wanted. But this is just simply how we are now allowed to interview juveniles and what that looks like. How we can question them and where we can talk to them or how we can talk to them. And a lot of this is not any different than what we've already done. It's now written form. But this was definitely one. I can't remember the House bill. But I got with Walton and Tiger to make sure we're all on the same page. And we were
Why
all,
wouldn't something like with the statute of Lexipol have canned stuff for you guys to just drop in? Or did they?
no, not this, because this was pretty specific. I mean, I'm sure that if we asked them to, they would have, but the Salem had already put this into play, a lot of what needed to happen. So it was simple enough, but that was one of the bigger ones. And then as we talked about, are there any other policies in there that we needed some clarification on or some discussion on? The rest of them after that were.
So I just ran through some stuff that involved HR personnel or stuff like that. You don't have your own, you rely on the city, right?
So, no.
Oh, okay. Does that seem like some nuances of the changes?
Well, no, in the fact that the city has personnel policy, but the association. So there is also, and for law enforcement, there's a whole nother world of discipline and verity and all the things and all the rights that are afforded to an officer versus just an employee of the city. Like City Hall would deal with a disciplinary completely different than we would. Now, there are other umbrella policies within the city that if it's not covered in the SPOA contract, then it applies. But what you're talking about was our discipline component, and this was actually state mandated legislative changes.
Okay, so one of the things I noticed was change from employee to public safety officer. Is that because of the different contracts?
I don't know why they changed them.
Okay.
I mean, it goes to officer does. Yeah.
So let's, Angie's not here, so I'll pick on her. If there was a complaint or an issue involving admin staff versus sworn officer, that would be handled the same or different, right?
It would be handled under the city policy.
Okay.
And this is specific to law enforcement personnel.
That's what I thought maybe this employee or to public safety was doing. That's the note I wrote, but. Okay.
And if you saw a lot of red with wellness,
Yeah.
officer involved shootings, interviewing. That all just kind of got all redlined and moved into the wellness component of it. So nothing really changed there other than it's got a new place to sit. I think aside from that, I mean, those were some of the big hitters of this.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too, whenever there was something that was scratched out and not replaced. I noticed it's because it was put into that wellness program. So it made me feel like all the changes were appropriate. There was a lot of quirky changes, like the cross off city and then right city right after, cross off department, right department. And I was kind of baffled. You did mention like there's things like taking out spaces. Maybe that's the reason why there was an extra space and they had to strike
Or they forgot a period or they missed
just
a
small grammatical reasons, right? Okay. I wasn't sure because it was also blue. I was like, I wonder if this is supposed to be hyperlinked in the policy document, but there's probably no hyperlinks with this, right? Okay.
So, if I remember right, I can't find it right now, on the, in line of duty deaths. I think I read that the chaplain was to be the notifier of survivors. And that surprised me that it wasn't, there wasn't, senior leadership involved in that too.
No, we utilize the chaplain a lot for that.
Okay.
As much as we can, for death notifications, if they're available. I mean, we can do it, we do it. As far as, us coming out, command staff doesn't do that. I mean, it would be obviously different if it was an officer involved issue, but, yeah, we use both Joel and, Wilson quite a bit for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, they have just a lot more resources. They're really well versed in giving people direction and guidance and what to do.
So our department and agency synonymous where you can.
Yeah, that was one of the,
You can call yourself one or the other. You can be the agency or you can be the department. They let kind of choose. So when it goes red line, I think it gives you both options, but we've already, when you first set this up, you got to decide what that filler was going to be for every word. So when it comes across that, I think, I can't remember even what we call ourselves now, because I think we've been both. So it's just a matter of choice.
I don't remember the Sherwood Police Agency. It'll always be the Sherwood Police Department.
And yeah, but then it can talk about it can say agency in there, the agency that does. But there are some little plugins that you can change things up.
so I'll say it again, after going through this with Jeff and trying to go through a couple of different. This to me was the best. Having the red line and being able to see the whole context and see what the specific changes were. And I could do it fast to decide, do I need to spend any time here? Is this something that we should be concerned about or, so. Even though I'm old school and printed it out,
I like it too, because that's where I write my notes.
yeah. This was very efficient for me to review and have some notes and comments for you.
And I know I asked, but everybody good with that? Everybody good with this way and it'll work? And you guys are good with, at my discretion of the critical stuff? I mean, I don't want to inundate you with looking through going, why do you send this to me?
Well, and at first I was looking at those major headings and going, why, when there was hardly anything changing or it was just statute. And then I realized the subject matter was critical or major or whatever. So that just took some time to figure out, but it's still, this, like I said, it was a good process for me compared to the past.
Good. Well, we'll continue down this path and Well, you say otherwise.
Thank you so much, Ty, for sharing that with us. Your shoes, you good with your shoes?
Oh,
Did you get it?
you know what's so bad? I got them unclipped and now I'm afraid because I did the exact same thing.
We're back on.
Is it when you cross them like under your chair?
Yeah, I got these hooks that I've never had and they catch the lace of my other one. I'm like, uh-oh.
All right. Well, with that being completed, do we have anything else, any other statements?
So let me, in the past, we made some formal proclamation about what we just reviewed. Do you still need that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we do so that I can tell council that you reviewed it, and you accepted it, and it's now moving on. I don't remember the exact terminology we used.
So let me try that. I would move that we reviewed and accepted the proposed changes, or acknowledge the proposed changes as presented, and recommend that they be accepted. Does that sound right? Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, there's a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
There's a second. So all in favor of accepting the inclusions and changes as written and supported by our chief, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Hearing none. All right, this language is now accepted and approved by our board and can be recommended to the council. There. Thank you. Okay, well, since we put the citizen comments at the forefront of our meeting, that concludes what we had on our agenda for this evening.
I move that we adjourn.
Motion for, seconded. So say one, so say all. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a
We're in
busy-
summer mode.
I know.
Although you guys have been like busy in the summer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's all out and about being grimy.
That's right.
You guys are busy because it's hot and dry.
That song played, everybody gets up and dances around.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? That was.
Oh, crud. I know what I was gonna say. Dang it.
Have to be on the record?
No,
Okay.
I'm gonna put this out there. So with the staffing report or the staffing study, kind of where we want to get that going. I wanted to see if anybody, just one or two of you would have an interest in meeting with me on a regular basis until we get it